Hey, what's up guys, Alex here. Thank you for checking this video and welcome to the episode number 17 of the series of tutorials on how to build a premium theme for WordPress. Welcome again. In this tutorial we're going to take a look on how to generate this central align menu and how to implement this menu section inside the header that we did a couple of lessons ago. So let's jump right into our administration panel and let's create a bunch of pages that we're going to then use to populate our menu. I just created the page about and page content that are the two pages that I want. First of all, let's access our text editor, and inside the ink folder, let's select the theme support.php file. Let's scroll back here and let's create a small comment. Just a line of comment to indicate that I'm gonna activate nav menu option. Let me create a little bit of space so it's gonna be centered aligned to your screen. And here we can create the usual custom function that we're gonna write to activate whatever option we want to activate. So let's call the function as usual with sunset underscore register underscore nav underscore menu. Open and close the brackets. No parameters needs to pass inside the brackets. Let's open the curly brackets, and inside let's write the really simple and straightforward function to register a new navigation menu. And the function of WordPress is register underscore nav underscore menu. Let's open the brackets, and inside as a first parameter we have to specify the location. This location has to be a unique name, then we're gonna call back again in the front end to print the actual menu. So I'm gonna call this primary, but you can call it however you want. You can call it like main navigation, or you can call it first menu, or like header menu, whatever you want. The important thing it is all one single word. If you have multiple words, just use the underscore to connect different words. Don't use the dash and don't use special characters. As simple as possible. So this one is going to be my primary. The second parameter is not necessary, it's optional, but it's better to use it because we are releasing this theme, so we want to give the ability to whatever user is going to use this theme to understand what kind of menu is this primary. And the description is good for this purpose. So let's put a bunch of single quotes to write a screen, and let's write primary navigation menu, we can call it, or we could call it header navigation menu. And it's pretty good here. Now we have to call the usual action to activate this function at a specific point of the generation of our WordPress installation. So let's call the add action function, and inside here as an action I want to call this function during the after setup of the theme. And then the function that I want to call is this function here that I just generated. And of course, as usual, I pass the function has a string inside single quotes. Let's close with a semicolon. Let's save it. Let's go back in our administration panel. Let's refresh it. And inside the appearance menu, we have a sub-menu voice called menus. If we click on it, we're gonna see here WordPress by default generated a pre-built menu called menu 1, but it actually doesn't exist because it's not saved. You can have any option. Basically, the first time you access this page, WordPress is gonna pre-populate this first fake menu with a custom link to your homepage out of the text, your homepage link, because of course it knows it, and then puts all the pages that you have. We have only 2 pages, so it automatically added these 2 pages inside the menu. Let's name the menu with like header menu and then create this menu. After we create this menu, of course, now the menu is saved. We have the manage location option, and we have here all the locations that we generated. We generated just one. As you can see here, we have the same description that we put inside our primary registration nav menu. So if we click that and we click save. Now this menu is connected to our primary menu. If we go here and manage location, we're gonna have the full list of all the menus that we're gonna generate during this tutorial, and we can swap whatever custom menu option we create. So this is pretty straightforward. This is not something crazy or something too complicated. Just as a side note, when you create a taxonomy, or when you create a custom post type, you can of course you can add these newly generated options at a menu, but sometimes the information that you just created, they don't appear here in this accordion sidebar to select a custom taxonomy or a custom post type. To make it appear, you just be sure to check screen options here and see if your options are deactivated in the checkbox. As usual, if I'm going too fast, be sure to check the previous series of tutorials that I did, the WordPress 101 for beginner developers, where I explain in details all the options and all the meaning of these options in the menus administration panel. But let's keep going. So now we have our menu generated in the backend. We have to just print our menu in the front end here in the bottom part of our header. So let's access again our text editor, and this time let's access the header.php file. Let's scroll down here, and now finally we can start editing this HTML script. Let's edit a little bit the HTML markup to convert it into an HTML5 markup. So this is a little bit of a personal opinion, this is a little bit of a personal preference. I don't like to write HTML5 markup right away while I'm coding, because most of the time I change stuff around. So this one I know because I coded, and I know that I'm gonna have here the nav container. I coded the header, so I can change the markup to header and then close the header here. But I didn't know that while I was coding this. I mean, I had a generic idea of this HTML markup, but I wasn't sure that I was going to stick with this logic and with this structure. So I don't really like to start right on with the HTML5 markup if I'm not sure if I want to move stuff around. So putting everything as a div, it's more manageable for me. Then you can always, as I usually do, go back at the end of your project and do a generic cleanup and convert whatever you want in HTML5 or remove stuff around. So you're free to do whatever it makes you comfortable. So now inside here, the nav container, we can write our code to call the nav menu. And because we are calling Bootstrap, I'm gonna use the logic and the HTML structure of Bootstrap. So inside the nav container, let's create a little bit of space. Let's create also here a little bit of space. So also this code is gonna be at the center of your screen. Let's open the nav HTML5 container with the usual class of Bootstrap for the navbar. Then navbar default to have a default style applied. And now I want to use navbar-sunset because I'm going to use this class to generate my own custom style for this navbar. Let's close this tile. Now here we can open the PHP tags. And inside here we can write the WordPress function to call our menu. To call the menu, we have to use the function wp_nav_menu. And inside here, inside the brackets, we have to write an array of arguments. So you can write and generate a variable called arguments and create the array here and then put the variable inside the brackets, or you can write the array straight on inside the brackets. That's how I like to do it. Let's remember to close the wp-nav menu function with a semicolon. Inside the array, let's go into another line and let's start putting our attributes, our attribute inside the array. So the first attribute is between single quotes, the theme underscore location, that the parameter is identical of the parameter that we specify when we register the nav menu. So in my case is primary, comma to separate the different attributes. I want to remove the container because I don't want the WordPress generates a container around my menu. So I want to put container false, and false without any single quote because it's a boolean, so just through a false. I want to apply a specific menu class to the menu UL element that is going to be generated inside here. So I want to apply the class of Bootstrap also in this case. So menu underscore class, it's equal to a bunch of classes: nav, navbar dash nav, and that's it. Let's save it. Let's go back in our front end. Let's refresh it and let's see what's going on. So now we have our menu with a little bit of style. If we inspect the element, of course, we're going to see that we are inside a nav container that is the same width of our container. Our navbar has the proportion and the padding of a simple standard navbar of Bootstrap, and it works the rollover, and if we click, it navigates directly to the actual page, it goes to the content, it goes back to the home page, so it works. So technically this menu should be already inside our header container and right at the bottom of the header container, but because we converted this section into a table and we forced the table cell to be height 100%, we're gonna have a little bit of issues in this case. What we could do here, we could solve this issue in a lot of different ways. It depends on what you really like. We could like force the table to not be at 100%, but be at, I don't know, 80%, and then the menu would be here. Or we could put two table rows, one containing this top part and one containing the menu, and then assign a specific height percentage of pixel to fill this space. The easiest solution that I found and I really like is the following one. Let's set a position relative to the header container class, that is our container where our menu is. So here we already have a position relative. The second thing we have to do is use the class nav container and put a position absolute. Let's create a little bit of space and let's write the class dot nav container, and here we can specify the position absolute. So what it does, the position absolute, is basically removing the menu here to be an element that occupies space. So now we have the ability to move it around however we want, and we are not forced to stay inside the containment of this height, because this element doesn't occupy space anymore. It's floating around. It's not really floating, but it's like kind of detached. It's on another layer of our environment here, of our markup. So what we can do now, we can force the bottom to be 0. We can put the left to be 0 and the right to be 0, and we don't specify the top because the top is fine as to be as the same height of the content. So let's save it. Let's go back in our front end, refresh it and check. And now as you can see, our header here, our nav container, it's inside. We specified bottom 0, so the div is forcing the position of this element at the bottom of the first container that it finds with a position relative. So a position absolute stops whenever the container or the div or the object or wherever the attribute finds a position relative wrapper around it. So now we have the menu inside here and we can style it as we want. Of course, if you don't see any edits, if you don't see anything updating in your file, always remember to activate the Sass compiling of your Sass file, because we're using Sass, so you need Sass to watch for whatever editing you're doing and to generate a CSS file in order to be readable. So it's pretty much it for this super quick lesson. We just created a new menu, our primary menu, and we printed our menu inside our front end. In the next lesson, we are gonna properly style the menu to reflect the style that we created inside our design file, and we're gonna apply also the bootstrap nav class container to prevent whatever issue we could have if a user decides to use a drop-down menu with multiple classes or multiple menus links. And we will check and we will see how to handle all these situations in a responsive environment. So it's pretty much it for today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, as usual, give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. Or if you don't give a shit, it's fine. It's totally fine. I really appreciate your support. So thank you again, guys. And until the next lesson, as usual, happy coding.